Good morning. I hope you can hear me well today. Okay, let's do the prayers. Dumba jumden de jen shewa ta jumba yandaba zobe sanje rikwa da shabso demba dewara shewa jiden jemba jebu dube kalo gyurwa lana meba lada menamje dumba sanje jumden de Bejawa jaja duba la jaja lo chodo jazo je ho dumba jumden de shen shewa Jajumba yandaba zobe sanje rikwa da shabso demba dewara shewa Jiden jemba jebu dube kalo gyurwa lana meba lada menamje dumba sanje jumden de bejawa Shaja duba la jaze lo chodo jazo che ho dumba jumden de shen shewa cha jumba yandaba zobe sanje rikwa da shabso temba tewara shewa jikden jemba jebu dube kalo gyurwa lana meba lada menamje dumba sanje jumden de pejawa shaja tuba la jaze lo Chodo jazo je ho sanje chodan soje chonama la chanju bado tane jazo je Tage choshe jebe chonama je jola penje sanje jubara sho sanje chodan soje chonama la Chanju bado dane jazo che tage chushe jebe tsonama je jola penje sanje jubara sho sanje chodan tsoje chonama la chanju bado dane jazo che tage chushe jebe tsonama je jola penje sanje jubara sho Okay. Good morning again. I hope you are all well and doing well as well. So I am not very sure whether you were able to hear last Sunday when I talked about this, the refuge and bodhicitta prayer that we do. Since there are newcomers, I just wanted to repeat here because last Sunday, first 5 minutes, there was some glitch and you couldn't hear. So I think those who are already into Dhamma for a long time, you already know, but those newcomers. So when we say the refuge and bodhicitta prayer, so in the text, generally we will say that I go for refuge to Buddha Dhamma until I achieve enlightenment, and then say that the merits that the merits from, normally it is merits in engaging in perfection of wisdom and so forth. But here we say that Tagi Jinso, Tagi, instead of saying Jinso Gibe Sonamji, we will say Tagi Chönyin. Chönyin means listening to Dharma. From the merits that I accumulated from listening to Dharma, may I achieve enlightenment for the sake of all sentient beings. So the Lama will say that Tagi Chöshe Gibe. So if those who find it a bit different, what I am saying and what you see in the text, it is because of that. Lama will say that the merits that I accumulated from teaching Dhamma, may that merit, may I achieve enlightenment in order to liberate sentient beings. So there is this difference. I just wanted to make it clear to the newcomers. And so So we have covered until verse 101. So today we are going to dive into verse 102 onwards. So from this onwards, what we are going to do is, now we are going to discuss about the ultimate bodhicitta. Remember, this text is all about cultivating the two bodhicittas, the conventional bodhicitta and the ultimate bodhicitta. So far, for over 100 verses, we have talked about the conventional bodhicitta. Mainly, we talked about what is that is preventing us, what is the obstacle, what is that thwarting us from generating the conventional bodhicitta. And then we talked about how self-cherishing attitude is the obstacle, is the hindrance. It is because of this self-cherishing attitude that we are unable to really generate a genuine compassion for others, as well as bodhicitta mind. And we have reflected on numerous flaws or the disadvantages of self-cherishing attitude. We have gone through each and every instances, almost each and every instances of how this self-cherishing is at the root of all our problems, how this self-cherishing is the main culprit. So we have talked about all that. And then every now and then it also talks about, underneath this, there is this self-grasping attitude. There is this misapprehension of the reality of self, which is the root cause of self-cherishing attitude. So there is a kind of a link or the causation that because of this self-grasping attitude, because of this misapprehension of how self really exists, we develop attachment to this something called I or self. And then because of that, self-cherishing attitude arises. And then as a result, we engage in all kinds of negative actions that eventually results into us suffering. So we have already established that relationship between the self-grasping, or in Geshe Sopa's book called the personal absolute, this misapprehension of this personal identity. We have already established that relationship because of self-cherishing, and because of self-grasping, self-cherishing attitude arises. Because of self-cherishing attitude, all that sufferings and problems arises. So we have already established that. And now we are talking about the self-grasping. What is self-grasping? So from here onwards, we are now entering into the ultimate bodhicitta. So ultimate bodhicitta is actually the wisdom realizing emptiness. So we need to understand about the emptiness. So understanding of emptiness is very, very important. So we talk about this selflessness, no self, the concept of no self. So this we have to be very careful when we say that there is no self. Many people misunderstand this. I have met people who are into Dharma for some time and who have heard about this concept of no self. But many people misunderstand it as no self means there is no self. There is no I. That is not the point. That is not the meaning. When we say there is no self, that means that there is no self the way we perceive. There is self, because if there's no self, then there is no self, that there's no I that comes from the past life, and then also that goes to the next life, and also the one that achieves enlightenment. So there has to be self, there has to be I. But the way we perceive I, how I exist, is completely different from what I exist in reality. So that is the misconception. That's why we call ignorant. So in Buddhist terminology, ignorance is quite common. But of course, people don't like to be called you are ignorant. But here when we talk about ignorance or being ignorant, that means we are ignorant of the reality of things, how things, including I, exist in reality. We perceive completely a different I. So because of that, we have all the problems. So here the verse is about doing something about it. So let's get into the text. So verse 102. Deze thori doa thamje yang tangadang sungbar tame rab komne sidan shiwa nambar mi tokbar nyamba nyudu tingzin kombar sho nyamba nyudu rangu chobar shos. So at this time too, may all the beings of the higher realms meditate thoroughly on no self, just like me. So this is, of course, Dhammarakshita is saying that, Dhammarakshita as a practitioner, as a Bodhisattva, Dhammarakshita has been practicing or engaging in Bodhisattva's practices. So just like me, Dhammarakshita was saying, just like the way I practice, may all sentient beings too practice. So in this practice includes the meditating on no self. And without conceptually opposing existence to pacification, may they meditate on their perfect equanimity. So here, in English translation, they use the term equanimity. I'm not very sure whether that is the exact translation. In Tibetan text, we call nyambanyi, nyam. So that is more like evenness. So here we are saying that even though, so existence to pacification, so existence is the samsara, pacification is the nirvana. So nirvana and pacification, even though it looks two contrasting things, two polarized concepts, but in its true nature or in reality, they are same. They are even in being, are empty of inherent existence. So that's what I'm saying. And without conceptually opposing existence to pacification, may they meditate on their perfect equanimity. So may they be able to see them same when it comes to its reality, when it comes to being empty of inherent existence. May they recognize their self-identity as perfect equanimity. So self is empty of inherent existence. It has been all the time. But we fail to recognize that. So you're saying, may we be, or may they be able to identify or recognize that all the things are same in lacking inherent existence. So that's the meaning of this verse. So before we dive into, because following this stanza, it is all about emptiness. So I thought to kind of lay the foundation, just have some foundation on the emptiness, the concept of emptiness. So as you see, the next slide, emptiness. So what is emptiness? In Sanskrit, it's called shunyata. So what do we mean by empty? Empty does not equal to nothingness. There has been in the past, even amongst early scholars, that emptiness means nothingness. And especially in the West, there is this misunderstanding that emptiness means really empty of anything. It's nothingness. That is not the case. So that's why it is very important to understand the object of refutation. When we say there is no inherent existence, when we say there is no self, what are we actually refuting? What are we talking about? Empty of what? So that is very important. So if I ask, let's say if we had class last week, and then if I ask someone, was Ken in class last Sunday? So in order for that person to answer this question, he has to know who Ken is. Without knowing who Ken is, he cannot answer that. Even though he was in the class, he has seen all the people, all those who came to class, but he cannot answer the question because he does not know who Ken is, what Ken looks like. So this is same here. When we talk about empty of something, we need to know what we are refuting. What is that we are saying that does not exist? So in Tibetan term, there are so many, let's say the common terminology, we say that tembar Drupa, rangshingi Drupa, rangwene Drupa. So in English, equivalent to Tibetan those terminology, I think we have something called inherent existence. We use intrinsic nature. Things do not have inherent intrinsic nature. There is nothing absolute. And then very common is things do not exist by its own. And then we also use the phrase that things exist subjectively. Things do not exist objectively. So what does that mean? So that means there is, even though to our eyes or to our perception. So I think the best thing is, first of all, let's just for 1 minute try to generate this strong sense of I. Spend 1 minute now, and then try to conjure or this strong sense of I. Let's try this. So when we say like, I am teaching, I am listening, he said nasty things to me, I am so and so. So when we say this, how do we perceive this I? So we find that we perceive it as there is something solid there, something independent. We perceive that there is something, what you call, absolute, or something that is not dependent on anything else. There is something very separate. So that's our perception. So when we say there is no inherent existence, so we are saying that there is things do not really, there is nothing solid there in the thing itself. So in order to understand that, we need to first understand this, what is called the two extremes: absolutism and nihilism. So absolutism is, so these are those who are the lower schools of thought. So to them, if things exist, then things must exist inherently. If something exists, it exists inherently. That is the one extreme. And then the other one, when you say that things do not exist inherently, then to them nothing exists. So there is this danger. This is not for ordinary people. Even in early Tibetan scholars, there is this misunderstanding. So of course, we are talking from the Prasangika view, the highest school of thought. So we need to understand. That's why it's called the Uma, or the middle path. So the tenet, the standpoint of Prasangika or the Umapa is that it does not fall into any of these extremes. Things do exist. It does not exist inherently. Not existing inherently doesn't mean that things do not exist. So we need to distinguish between merely existence and inherently existence. So things merely exist, but things do not inherently exist. Likewise, we also make a distinction between non-existence and non-inherently existence. Things do exist, but they do not exist objectively from its own. So that is like the foundation. So then, if things do not exist inherently, then the question is, how does things exist? That's when it says all internal and external things are empty of inherent existence because they are dependently arising. So that's why dependent arising is like king of the reasons. You see the image here. So this is the pieces, disassembled pieces of a camera, a Sony camera. So if things, the logical, the rational is that if things exist from its own, or if things exist inherently, then you need to find, when you analyze where it is, we need to be able to find it amongst the pieces. like this camera pieces. Which is the camera? Is the lens the camera? Is this ring the camera? Is the cover the camera? Or is this piece is the camera? No. But because all these come together, and then we impute the label on it, that's how things exist. So that's why when we do meditation, this is good verses to recite. A person is not earth. So likewise, when we feel that there is this absolute I in there, the I exists from its own. When we perceive that I exists objectively, so then we do this analysis. A person is not earth. So all these forms are made out of these four elements. So when you analyze each and every element and see whether that is I, you cannot find I amongst all these pieces. So this is a good verses to help us do meditation on selflessness. A person is not, this is Nagarjuna's, the garland, the precious garland. A person is not earth, not water, not fire, not wind, not space, not consciousness, and not all of them. So the aggregate of all that is not the one. Each and every pieces are not the person. Then says, what person is there other than these? But if you look beyond or outside of these aggregates, like us, 5 aggregates, if we look outside of these 5 aggregates, we cannot find. It has to, if there is I objectively existing, we should be able to find within those constituents. So we cannot. So that's why self does not exist objectively. Just as a person is not real, due to being a composite of 6 constituents, so each of the constituents also is not real due to being a composite. So even if you break down, like say, my arm is not me. But even that arm, if we scrutinize, which is my arm? Is this part my arm? Is this part my arm? Is the bone my arm? Is the finger my arm? Is the flesh my arm? We cannot find. So this is the way to analyze and then come to the conclusion that there is no inherent I or intrinsic I. So there are many ways to analyze. One popular analysis is this. So if self exists inherently, then it has to be either 2 of these. There is no third possibility. So what are the 2 possibilities? If self existed inherently, then either it would have to be inherently the same as the aggregates, or it has to be inherently different from the aggregates. So this one, in order to come to this conclusion, this logical reasoning, we need to have already established that if things exist, either it has to be one or it has to be multiple. There is no third possibility. Either multiple or single. Either one or separate. So once we have that established, then you can apply that to inherently existing. If things exist inherently, then it has to be inherently same as aggregates. So here is we're talking about self. It has to be inherently different from the aggregates. So what happens? What are the faults? There are multiple faults. If self were to be inherently same as the aggregates, then first of all, it would be meaningless to propound a self. So no point having a separate name because it is same. So the aggregate is self, self is aggregate. So why bother to come up with a new name or term? And then another fault is that there would be many selves. If they are same, if they are one, then there are 5 aggregates. Then we have to say that there are 5 self, 5 I, 5 Drupa Rinpoches, because there are 5 aggregates. Or reverse, we have to say that there are only one aggregate because there's only one self. And then thirdly, the self would arise and cease by its own nature. So if it inherently, so when we use that word inherently, means it is not dependent on other causes and conditions, so which suggests that it comes by its own nature. Then there is no continuum. So present Drupa Rinpoche or present self has nothing to do with the next Drupa Rinpoche. Or today's self has nothing to do with tomorrow's self. That means this life's self has nothing to do with the next life's self. So then, why bother? It is completely like cats and dogs, unrelated. So that's what it is talking about. And then if it is not same as the aggregates, then it has to be different from the aggregates. So if self is inherently different from aggregates, then there is no relationship. Completely different. It's nothing to do with, it's really like cats and dogs. What cat does, it has no consequences on dogs. It's nothing to do with the dogs. So as a self would have the characteristics of the aggregate arising, abiding, and ceasing, would not have. So we say, I'm having headache because your head is having pain. I am hungry because your stomach is calling for food. I walk. Your feet walked. We say, I walked. I slept. I closed my eyes. So if they are inherently separate, inherently different, then we cannot say all this. Because these two are completely two different things. So these are the faults. So this is one way to meditate. Sit down and first generate a strong sense of I, and then when we realize that we have this misperception that the strong sense of I existing from its own, then we ask this question: does it really exist objectively or inherently? If it exists inherently, then it has to be either same as aggregates or different from the aggregates. And then you go through this analysis and then come to the conclusion that because of all this, there is no inherent existence. There is no inherent self. So that's like the foundation. In order to go through the following stanzas or verses, we need to have some understanding. So this is quite deep. It is quite daunting. And there was this story that I think this is in Kopan's courses. So people, those who are new to the concept of emptiness, when they were introduced, when the Lama, I'm not sure whether it is Lama Sopa Rinpoche or some another Lama, so it was like, there is table, but there's no table. So people are really, really confused. What are you talking about? I see the table. Why do you say there's no table? Of course, we're talking about table does not exist inherently. So that's the basics of emptiness. So in order to kind of relax our mind after this heavy topic, let's watch this. So this is what happens when we are able to understand a certain degree of understanding of emptiness of I or selflessness. When we gain some insight into this concept of no self, we will be able to loosen our grips. So self-grasping is analogous to a fist. The stronger you hold, or your fist, you hold it stronger, what happens is more painful. Whereas if you hold it a bit lighter, not too strongly, there's no pain. So at the moment, we really, not only we perceive, we really believe that there is something solid called I there. Because of that, our attachment is there. The stronger the grasping, the stronger the attachment. Like that video where that old lady, she really believed that something is happening Of course, we don't know what kind of thought is going in her mind, but maybe like, oh, maybe this is Jesus, the real Jesus. And then you can see that when she was told that this is just for laughing, candid camera, then she let go of. So there is no seriousness. So this is the whole point. If we are able to meditate on this emptiness, then we will be able to loosen our grip on this self, and then our attachment will also loosened. And then when unpleasant things happen to us, it won't affect us so much. When unpleasant things happen to our family, our friends, it won't be too painful. Why we are having this so much pain is because it's always I, me, my. We have this strong grasping there. So that's the whole point. So now, so it says, the verse 103. Tedar chena tadi chombarjur, tedar chena namdo chomjurde, medo yishi tame komjurde, sugui junde chide tome jurus. If we do this, the enemy will be vanquished. If we do this, false conception will be vanquished. I will meditate on the non-conceptual wisdom of no self. So why would I not attain the causes and effects of form body? So you say, if I do this, if I meditate on selflessness, if I meditate on emptiness, the enemy will be vanquished. So here the enemy is the self-grasping. So that is remember, the root of all our problems. That is like the nemesis. Our nemesis, the main, what do you call that? That our biggest enemy. So if we are able to, if we meditate on emptiness or the selflessness, then this enemy of self-grasping will be vanquished. Then if I do this, false conception will be vanquished. And then if we are able to do this, then all those false conceptions, all those defilements, all those afflictive emotions which were caused by this self-grasping will also be vanquished. In Bodhisattva, I think which chapter, I'm not sure, Shandideva talks about how all our problems, how all our fears and unpleasant experiences are a result of untamed mind. And if we are able to untame that, then it says that all those problems, all those consequences will go away. So taming our mind is like conquering all those unpleasant situations. So this is same here. I will meditate on the non-consummation of no self. So why would I not attain the causes of effect? So we also need to understand here, why are we now talking about emptiness, wisdom realizing emptiness? Because Bodhisattva's main goal or the goal is to achieve enlightenment. Of course, main goal is to liberate sentient beings. But as a means, Bodhisattva aspire to achieve enlightenment. So enlightenment does not come simply generating bodhicitta. It must have the wisdom aspects. So that's why we talk about the union of method and wisdom. So compassion, and then all this, the first, maybe the first 4 practices of the perfection of wisdom are part of the wisdom, a part of the method aspects. So that alone won't be able to bring us to enlightenment. We normally say the birds need 2 wings to fly. Likewise, we need both wisdom and method. So that's why after cultivating bodhicitta, then we need to cultivate the wisdom realizing emptiness, because this is the wisdom realizing emptiness is the one that will sever the root of samsara, which is the self-grasping. And another reason why we need both is that when we achieve enlightenment, we achieve what is called the 3 kayas: Dhammakaya, Rupakaya, or the Rupa, there are two Sambhogakaya and Nirmanakaya. So what happens is when we achieve enlightenment, so Dhammakaya is actually the enlightened mind. So enlightened mind, just that itself won't be able to benefit sentient beings. Nobody will be able to see the enlightened mind. So the enlightened mind has to manifest. So there are 2 ways. So one is Nirmanakaya, that only Arya beings can perceive that. So the health and the benefit is limited to those beings. However, the Sambhogakaya, that one is perceivable by all sentient beings. So Buddha has to manifest when we become enlightenment. So we achieve these three types of bodies in order to help all sentient beings. So the wisdom realizing, or the wisdom aspects of our practice, is to ensure us that Dhammakaya. But the method aspects of practices ensure us to have these 2 form bodies, so that we will be able to help sentient beings. So that's why both of these are necessary, are crucial, must present in the practice. So that's why first we talk about the conventional bodhicitta, and now we're talking about cultivating the ultimate bodhicitta. So now, from this onwards, now Dhammarakshita is now teaching us how to develop that insight, how to cultivate the ultimate bodhicitta. Kai teda tamje tende yin, tende töbe rangzu meba yin, pajur sujur zunang gyuma yin, gemeshindu nawe sunye yins. So now that we already have that foundation, so it will be easier to understand. So here saying that listen, so in Tibetan is kai, is like calling for someone. So it's a listen, All of this is but dependent origination. Dependent and empty, they are devoid of self-substance. Changing from one form into another, they are like apparitions. Like a fire ring seen in a rotating torch, they are mere illusions. So here, we talk about there's no inherent existence. So nothing exists inherently. So the reason is because there are dependent origination. So dependent origination can be understood in various levels. So the easy one is dependent on cause and conditions. So things arise, especially those produce compositions or the produce or the product. Those come about because of coming together the causes and conditions. And then there is another level, even though it is not cause and condition, but coming together of parts. Like this one, when we say our digestive system or our body, the inner body. So look at this. All this has to come together. When all this come together, we can call a person with what you call a person's inner body or inner organ or whatever you call that, even like digestive system or the person's body. So in order to have this, you need to have all this. When all these come together, only then we can call that there is this body there. So it means that dependent and empty, they are devoid of self-subsistence. So in some texts it's empty, some texts it's dependent. So it means that things are dependent on the causes and conditions, or parts, they are devoid of self-subsistence. There is no inherent nature there. And also changing from one form into another. So for example, like cloud. When there is a huge cloud, we will say, oh, today is a cloudy day. But then later, maybe an hour later, the sun is out. So we say, oh, it's now sunny day. So all these changes, all this change occurs. So even though when we look at the cloud, when it's cloudy, it looks like it is there for there permanently, but then it changes. So it is like illusion. And then like a fire ring seen in a rotating. So if you use a torch of fire, and then if you turn it round, when you look at it, it is like there is this ring of fire in the space. But there is not. Actually, it is just this action that has caused. So these are all kind of mere illusions. So likewise, these are all examples or analogy that, when we see this, we see there's a ring of fire in the space, but in reality, there is no such a ring of fire in the space. So likewise, when we see things, when we perceive things existing objectively, but it is actually the mental imputation. It exists only subjectively. Another example. Chushin shindu sola nyingbu me, puwa shindu tsela nyingbu me, kukna shindu tuyne jigba yin, megyu shindu kyangnen zeba yin, melon su nye taburu tendenda, Jingda nabun shimdu tudu da. So these are all analogy. First, normally, they will give you the examples, and then they will it will bring the actual meaning. So, like the plantain tree, life force has no inner core. So, plantain tree we call it chushing. It is said that this tree, inside, because of it grows near the water, so there is hollow inside. So like this plantain tree, life force has no inner core. There is no solid substance. Like a bubble, life has no inner core. Our life is so fragile as a bubble. It can crack any time. It can break any time. So life has no inner core, inherent core. Like a mist, it dissipates when one bends down. So here it says one bends down. But in other texts, it's like when you approach near. So when you see a mist, thick mist, it is so thick that you cannot even pass through. But as you go near, it clears. You can see. From a distance, it's like I cannot see, I cannot even walk. But when you approach the mist, it is not there. So this all comes, anyway, the later stanza will explain the meaning. Like a mirage, it is beguiling from a distance. So mirage in a hot day or in desert, from a distance you will see such a pretty kind of a water there, oasis there, but it is so appealing. But if you go near, it's not there. Like reflection in a mirror, it appears tangible and real. When we look into the mirror, we see our own reflection. And it looks really real. It looks like we are there, in there. Like a fog, it appears as if it is here to stay. If there is a thick fog there, and also, fog there, so it is like it appears to be very permanent and it will stay there. But after a while, it will also dissipate. So these are the examples. So the meaning here is this butcher and enemy. Tada sheman dini tishindu yoyonda de namyang yomayi tendenda de kandong tenmanyong nananda de choguru yulende. So this butcher and enemy ego too is just the same. So like all that example, that even though it appears, in appearance, there are various features or attributes or characters, but in reality, there is no essence, there is no substance. So likewise, it says that this butcher and enemy, our ego or the self-grasping, even though we apprehend, we perceive there is something solid there, something absolute there, there is nothing there. There's nothing solid there, there's nothing absolute there. So all these things lack any inherent existence. So though ostensibly it appears to exist, it never does. So this ostensibly it appears to exist. Exist means exist from its own. Though ostensibly it appears to exist from its own, it never does. Though seemingly real, nowhere is it real. Though appearing, it's beyond reification and refutation. So nangnanda de choguru yulende. So these are free of the two extremes. So there is no inherent existence, but it do exist. It is not that it is non-existence. It exists. Tela legi kolo kangshi che, kangshi yu, dini deda rangshin mena yang. Chuburu Kandu, Dawe Sunyesher, Lende Denen, Zumba Nazota, Nawansamdo, Langdur Chao Angs. Now the question arises, so if things do not exist from its own, so if there is no inherent existence, then the question is, then how can there be a wheel of karma? It's thus, though they are devoid of intrinsic existence, just as moons reflect. So it says that if there is no intrinsic nature in things, then isn't there karma? What happened to karma? And what about all the efforts that we are making? What about nirvana? What about Four Noble Truths? So these are the real questions that people get so confused. People take it as if things do not exist inherently, then things do not exist. So that's why this kind of question arises. Then what happened? Then what will happen to karma? Life, this life, next life? Why are we doing all these practices? It is like useless. So if there is no karma, but of course here is saying that it's thus though they are devoid of existence, just as moon's reflection appears in a cup of water, karma and its effect appear as diverse falsehood. So within this mere appearance, it will follow the ethical norms. So things exist dependently. Things exist in mere appearance. So we have to accept things as it is, and we should not go and search for it, because then you won't find it. But it doesn't mean that things cannot function. So example is, just as the moon's reflection appears in a cup of water. So how we perceive, how this reflection appears is that it is due to the coming together of this still water, and then there is a moon up in the sky. So when these two come together, then the reflection appears. So likewise, karma and all these other things also exist due to the coming together of different parts, and also dependent on causes and independence with causes and condition. So they exist conventionally. They do not exist ultimately, but they exist conventionally. So in that sense, we should not just ignore karma, the law of karma. We should still, because there is ramification. We will suffer. Suffering and all these are same. As suffering will happen. So the example is that when the fire at the end of the universe blazes, milam yudu kebe me barse rangshin me jang sawen jigdatar nyegam sola rangshin me na yang sosek la so jigbe pangwar chas. So when the fire at the end of the universe blazes in dreams, I feel terrified by its heat, though it has no intrinsic reality. So even though there is no intrinsic nature, but we still have to follow the karma. We have to abide by karma. It is because this is the example. So when we dream, in our dream, let's say if we have a nightmare, we get all that fear. Our body perspire, and we try to scream. There is genuine fear when we have this kind of dream. So it's just when the fire at the end, yes, in some texts is fire in end, some like here I think the pit fire blazes. This is a particular, in Tibet, is a particular fuel that Tibetans use. So when we dream of this kind of fire in our dream, we feel terrified by its heat, even though there is no real fire there. It is our projection. So likewise, although hell realms and their like have no intrinsic reality, out of trepidation for being smelted, burned, and so on, I forsake evil. So even though the hell realms itself is free of inherent existence, even the fires in the hell realm do not exist inherently. But once you are born in there, one will feel the heat from that fire. So that's why he's saying that here we need to be careful. Even though these are even though these do not exist inherently, but they still exist, and therefore we have to be careful of our actions. So I think time is up. We will stop here for today, and then I think we will be able to finish the text next Sunday, and then we still have another Sunday on 31st, if I'm not mistaken. So if you have any questions, then you can write to me, and if there are a few questions, then the last session of this semester I can spend addressing your questions. So if you have no questions, then I have to think of something else. So I would appreciate if the questions are emailed to me by end of this week. End of this week means by this Sunday, this next Sunday, is it? We have no class next Sunday, but if you are able to send in your question by next Sunday, that will be great. And then I will go through your questions. If anything that I can address or I can answer, I will try. If not, I will let you know that I don't know the answer. Okay, thank you very much. Let's say the dedication prayers. Tage jinye sabe gyawa de tendan drowa kunla kangben dan kebara chizun losan tabai tembe nyingbo ringdo seje sho jambe bawe chedara kemba dan kundo sambu teyan tejin do dada kungi jesu talobich gyawa deda tamje rabdo ngo tusun shekbe gyawa tamje ji ngowa kanla chodo ngawa dagi kewe zawa ndigun ja zangbo chuji rabdo ngo war gis. Thank you.